When most people think about the dollar, they imagine green paper bills or digital numbers in their bank account. They see money as something solid, permanent, unshakable. But here's what they don't see. The dollar isn't backed by gold anymore. It isn't secured by silver or any tangible asset. Since 1971, it has floated on nothing but promises and a system so intricate, so carefully engineered, that even most economists miss the true machinery keeping it alive. The dollar survives because of a hidden loop, a cycle that feeds on itself, grows stronger with each rotation, and has quietly become the most powerful economic force on the planet. Understanding this loop isn't just academic curiosity, it's survival. Because when you see how this system really works, you'll understand why every other currency eventually bends to the dollar's will, and why that might not last forever. Let me paint you a picture of what happened in the summer of 2008. Lehman Brothers had just collapsed. Credit markets were freezing. Banks across Europe were hemorrhaging money. And yet, in the middle of this chaos, something extraordinary happened. Investors didn't flee the dollar, they rushed toward it. While the American financial system was imploding, foreign money poured into US Treasury bonds like water flowing downhill. The very country that had triggered the global crisis became the safe haven everyone wanted. This wasn't logical, it was systemic. It revealed the hidden loop that most people never see, the mechanism that keeps the dollar alive even when America's own economy stumbles. To understand that loop, we need to go back to a hotel room in New Hampshire in 1944, where the future of money was decided by men in suits who understood power better than most people understand their morning coffee. The Bretton Woods Conference wasn't just a meeting. It was the moment America convinced the world to make the dollar the center of everything. Gold would back the dollar, and the dollar would back everyone else's money. It seemed fair, balanced, reasonable. But it gave America something no empire in history had ever possessed: the ability to print the world's money. For nearly 3 decades, this system worked beautifully. America supplied dollars, the world used them for trade, and everyone pretended the gold backing was real. But by the late 1960s, cracks were showing. The Vietnam War was expensive, social programs were costly, and other countries started doing the math. They realized America was printing more dollars than it had gold to back them. France's Charles de Gaulle began demanding gold for dollars, calling America's bluff. On August 15, 1971, President Nixon made a decision that changed everything. He severed the link between dollars and gold, telling the world that America would no longer exchange dollars for precious metal. It should have been the end of dollar dominance. Other countries should have walked away, created their own system, abandoned American currency. Instead, something remarkable happened. The hidden loop was born. Here's how it works, and this is where most people get lost. When America spends money it doesn't have, when it runs deficits, when it prints currency to cover its bills, those dollars don't just disappear into the American economy, they flow out into the world. Every barrel of oil bought from Saudi Arabia, every container shipped from China, every international transaction sends dollars abroad. This creates what economists call dollar liquidity. But that's just fancy language for flooding the world with American money. Now, here's where the loop begins to close. Foreign countries and companies accumulate these dollars. They need somewhere safe to put them. And what's the safest, most liquid place to park dollars? American Treasury bonds, US government debt, the very securities that fund America's ability to spend more than it earns. Foreign money flows back into America, lending the government the resources it needs to keep the system running. But the loop doesn't end there. It gets more sophisticated, when foreign central banks buy US Treasuries, they're not just making an investment, they're making a strategic choice. They're betting that the dollar will remain stable, that America will remain powerful, that this system will continue, and their very participation makes that bet more likely to pay off. Think about it from China's perspective. China holds over $1 trillion in US Treasury securities. If the dollar collapsed, if America defaulted, if this system fell apart, China would lose staggering amounts of wealth. So China has every incentive to keep the loop functioning. They must continue buying American debt, continue accepting dollars for their exports, continue participating in a system that makes America stronger. This creates what economists call a coordination problem, but it's really a trap. Everyone is locked into the system because everyone else is locked into the system. Breaking free would require coordinated action that no single country can risk. So the loop continues, feeding on itself, growing stronger with each cycle. The beauty of this mechanism is that it makes America's deficits into someone else's problem. When the US government spends $1 trillion it doesn't have, that money flows overseas, comes back as loans, and funds more spending. America gets real goods, real services, real resources. The rest of the world gets paper promises. It's the most elegant wealth transfer in human history, disguised as free trade. But here's what makes the loop truly powerful. It doesn't just move money, it moves power. Countries that want to participate in global trade need dollars. They need access to American banks, American clearing systems, American financial infrastructure. This gives America veto power over the global economy. Step out of line and you can be cut off from the system that everyone else depends on. We saw this with Iran, with Russia, with any country that challenges American interests. Financial sanctions aren't just economic weapons. They're proof that the hidden loop has created something unprecedented, a global monetary system where one country controls the on-off switch for everyone else's prosperity. The loop feeds on trust, but it also feeds on fear. Trust that America will remain stable, but fear of what happens if you opt out. This system has survived challenges that should have destroyed it. The inflation of the 1970s, the deficits of the 1980s, the dot-com crash, the 2008 financial crisis, the pandemic spending spree. Each time, experts predicted the end of dollar dominance. Each time, the loop proved more resilient than anyone imagined. But resilience isn't the same as permanence. And today, cracks are appearing in the system that even its architects never anticipated. The first crack appeared in plain sight, but most people missed it because they were looking in the wrong direction. In 2009, China and Russia signed a currency swap agreement. Not a big deal, the experts said. But it was the first time in decades that major powers had publicly agreed to bypass the dollar for bilateral trade. Then came the sanctions. When America froze Russian assets in 2014, and more drastically in 2022, something shifted in the global conversation. Countries started asking uncomfortable questions. If America could weaponize the dollar system against Russia today, what would stop them from doing it to anyone else tomorrow? The hidden loop had always relied on voluntary participation. Now it was starting to look like coercion. The world watched America and its allies demonstrate just how much control they wielded over the global financial system. It was impressive, it was devastating, and it was terrifying for anyone who wasn't on the winning side. China took notes. So did India, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, and dozens of other countries. They saw what happened to Russia and realized that their own dollar reserves, their own participation in the system, could be turned into weapons against them. The hidden loop suddenly looked less like a partnership and more like a leash. This is where the story gets interesting. Because the loop that kept the dollar alive for 50 years might now be creating the conditions for its own destruction. When you make participation feel like submission, you create incentives for alternatives that didn't exist before. And alternatives are emerging faster than most people realize. China launched the digital yuan. Russia began demanding rubles for energy exports. India started buying oil with rupees. Saudi Arabia, America's oldest petrodollar partner, began accepting yuan for Chinese oil purchases. Each move is small, careful, designed not to provoke immediate retaliation. But together, they represent the systematic construction of dollar alternatives by countries that control essential resources. Technology is accelerating this shift. Central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, can facilitate international trade without correspondent banks. Blockchain systems can settle cross-border payments without clearing through New York. The infrastructure that once made the dollar indispensable is being rebuilt, piece by piece, outside American control. Today's challengers aren't trying to replace the dollar with a single alternative. They're building a multipolar system where different currencies serve different functions, where trade can flow through multiple channels, where no single country controls the global financial infrastructure. It's not about creating a new hegemon, it's about ending hegemony altogether. The numbers tell the story more clearly than the headlines. Dollar reserves as a percentage of global central bank holdings have declined steadily for 2 decades. In 2000, over 70% of foreign exchange reserves were in dollars. Today, that figure has fallen below 60% and continues dropping. The hidden loop doesn't break suddenly, it erodes slowly, then collapses all at once when confidence finally cracks. And confidence is the one thing that can't be manufactured, printed, or mandated by government decree. The irony is that America's own actions are accelerating this process. Every sanction creates an incentive for alternatives. Every frozen asset drives capital towards systems beyond American reach. Every weaponization of the dollar system makes other countries more determined to build escape routes. The very power that the hidden loop created is being used in ways that undermine the loop itself. The stronger America appears in the short term, the weaker the dollar system becomes in the long term. Demonstrating absolute control over the global financial system proves to everyone else that they need alternatives. It's like a poker player who wins every hand by showing his opponents that the game is rigged. Eventually, they stop playing. The question isn't whether this system will change. The question is how fast and what comes next. Because the hidden loop that kept the dollar alive for half a century is starting to work in reverse. Instead of drawing the world closer to American financial infrastructure, it's pushing critical players away. Instead of making alternatives impossible, it's making them essential. When that loop breaks, when the dollar's monopoly ends, America doesn't just lose a financial advantage, it loses the ability to fund its lifestyle, its military, its global influence with other people's money. The real costs of empire, hidden for decades by the loop's magic, will finally come due. The hidden loop is unraveling before our eyes. What began as an elegant system of mutual dependence has become a trap that's pushing the world toward alternatives none of us can fully predict. The dollar's strength has become its weakness. Its dominance has created the very conditions for its decline. What this means for you is recognizing that the financial system you've trusted your entire life is built on mechanisms that are changing faster than most people realize. The dollar in your wallet, the savings in your bank account, the retirement funds in your portfolio, they all depend on a system that's showing cracks. History teaches us that monetary systems don't collapse gradually. They hold together through enormous stress, appearing stable right until the moment they're not. Rome's currency looked solid until it didn't. Britain's pound seemed permanent until it wasn't. The smartest move isn't to panic, it's to prepare. To understand that the world's monetary system is in transition, and that transition will create both dangers and opportunities for those who see it coming. The loop is breaking. The question is, will you be ready when it does?